my fight fans? UFC 284 just passed. It is now in the books. And guys, what a main event. What a fight between Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. First of all, you got to give it to both these guys. These guys came to bring it. It was one hell of a fight. It was definitely back and forth. It wasn't a super action packed fight, but just with their both skills, both of their talent, just put together, it was just one hell of a fight. You can definitely tell it was the number one versus the number two fighter in the world right now. In all honesty, I'm not just saying this because, I definitely was rooting for Volkanovski and I definitely have a lot of respect for Islam, but both these guys are still number one. At the end of the day, Islam Makhachev did get the win by decision, but it definitely wasn't easy. And at the end of the day, I still feel strongly that Volkanovski is the should be at least one half a pound for pound because nobody lost in that fight. Nobody. At the end of the day, I really feel like everybody was really counting out Volkanovski just due to the fact of his size, due to the fact that he is coming up from a different division. Alexander Volkanovski is the 145-pound champion of the world, and he is coming off some great performances against Max Holloway and whatnot, but a lot of these guys were smaller. And of course, Islam is coming off a win over Charles Oliveira, who was the lightweight champion and just dominating the lightweight division. Just becoming just this wrecking machine. And then we just see what he was able to do to Charles Oliveira with ease. It was not even trying. It was just so easy for both, for Islam Makhachev. So a lot of people from the podcast and a lot of people from other outlets were talking how like it should be relatively easy for Islam to do to Volkanovski if he was able to do that to Charles Oliveira, who Charles Oliveira is much bigger. But at the end of the day, I really feel like he surprised so many people. I am talking about Volkanovski. Volkanovski was able to take Islam to somewhere he's never been. Volkanovski was able to do something to Islam that nobody's ever done before, and that is stop a lot of his wrestling. The most impressive fighter in that cage was Volkanovski. I give respect to Islam, no, 100%, no doubt about it. His striking was definitely on point. He was able to connect with some really good shots to Volkanovski. He was able to connect with some of the great knee strikes when Volkanovski was getting in there closer. But I really feel like he was definitely going some takedowns, and he got some takedowns, but I don't know, he just felt like he was holding a little too much and a little too long, and I felt like the ref definitely let the fight go a little too long. It's just where it was just like little strikes here and there on the floor. I really had wished they would have stood them up just a little bit more, but I get it. As long as there's action, as long as there's movement, you got to let the fighters fight out of it. But it just felt like that with Volkanovski. He was able to stop a lot of the takedowns. He did get taken down. He was able to connect with Islam a lot more times. He was able to hurt Islam a few more times. I believe he even dropped Islam once. I believe in the fifth round, we saw some great ground and pound that we did not see from anybody else. Volkanovski is a featherweight doing this to a lightweight, a very large lightweight, a guy that could even go up to welterweight. And right now I really don't see Islam going up to welterweight, because if someone like Volkanovski could do that, imagine what's going to happen to him if he goes up to welterweight with some of these bigger guys who have just as good wrestling, if not better than wrestling, than Alexander Volkanovski. I'm talking about guys like Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, and the list goes on and on and on. So definitely a much different division. So he still has a lot to work on. He definitely is, I would say, number one pound for pound right now. I mean, I really feel like he wasn't even number two, but I believe it was for a promotional thing. I definitely put him on the pound for pound list. But, Volkanovski, I feel like he was number one because of just the way he was performing and the way he was beating up some of his opponents. With Islam, it was just relatively soon. Everything was relatively soon for him. So you never know. I would probably put somebody else at number one at the moment, just due to the fact that the opponents that he has had. But right now, he's had some really good tough opponents. His last two opponents were on the pound for pound list, so you definitely put him on that list, at least top three for sure, no doubt about it. Even still at number two, definitely. If he wasn't at number two before this fight, he definitely is number two now for sure, if not number one. You can have an argument with that. But this was one hell of a fight, guys. Still, at the end of the day, these guys should definitely be proud of themselves. Volkanovski went in there with a game plan and he executed it. I feel like he could have done a lot more. I feel like It's still a lot more easier said than done, of course. Hindsight's 2020. After the fact, it's pretty hard because Islam is really good with his hands, and also we already know how good Islam is when it comes to the wrestling. Islam is great when it comes to his wrestling, and Islam, really, really had a threat on the ground for Volkanovski. But I think after a few times, Volkanovski realized like, hey, this guy is not as strong as I am, because Volkanovski was very strong, very strong. Like I said, when Islam got you to the ground, it was almost like Habib. That was it. There was no, it was done. There was no getting out of it. There was no, it was just guaranteed submission, guaranteed stoppage, guaranteed ground and pound. And Islam had no answer. He was able to get him on the ground, but that was it. He was able to hold him there, but that was it. He couldn't even get him close to a submission. Brian Ortega was able to get Volkanovski to a submission, and Islam couldn't. It couldn't. He had no threat to ground and pound either. He literally, the only thing Islam's wrestling did not win him that fight. I believe his striking won him that fight, and I believe that really surprised Volkanovski how good Islam's striking was. I think it surprised everybody because Islam has really good hands, and I think he was able to stun Volkanovski a couple of times, and he even dropped him in that first round quickly. Got him to a knee. It's like, oh damn, and then he hurt him, I believe, in the fourth or fifth round with that knee shot, and cut him open. I believe in the eye. I can't remember what side it was, but yeah, he really surprised Volkanovski, and Volkanovski I really thought was going to be a lot more better of a striker going into this fight. So I do feel like that's what won him the fight, not as wrestling. He was able to get a couple of takedowns, sure, but still didn't really get to do much with it. He was not really doing any ground and pound. He wasn't really, he didn't even come close to getting any kind of submissions. He was getting there closer little by little, but it wasn't like it. I didn't see Volkanovski in any real danger. I really did not see that whatsoever. But where Volkanovski was, again, his strength and his power and his speed, he was just so fast. He was just so fast. He went in there and he was able to land some shots, and he was able to stun Islam a couple of times and get him a couple of times. If you look at Islam's face, he did get him, crack him quite a few times. He has a few bumps and bruises, just like Volkanovski does as well. So, guys, again, this was one hell of a fight. If you get a chance to catch that replay, definitely do. I definitely hope they do a rematch. So, again, now I'd like to know, what's next for Islam? Well, he's in a division that is just fully stacked. But right now, at the moment, there is no real clear number one contender. I believe there's a fight that has not yet been announced for May, I believe, Beneil Dariush versus Charles Oliveira. Then we got the tough, the Ultimate Fighter coaches going against each other. That would be Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor. So that only leaves pretty much Dustin Poirier. And, could you give Dustin Poirier a title shot? Sure, why not? At the end of the day, it's Dustin Poirier. He's done a lot for the sport. He's done a lot for the game. He's coming off a great, impressive win over Michael Chandler. And before that, he did have a tough loss to Charles Oliveira, who was the champion at the time. So it's up to Islam if he's ready and down to actually do another fight. Or I believe they do have Ramadan. I'm not 100% sure when that time frame is. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that. When it comes to Islam Makhachev and when he's going to return, I'm not sure if he wants to have a very busy active year. I think maybe his max fights is probably like 2 of them. So I would probably wait, I would say. I'm not sure. Like, again, it's all dependent on this timeline. But could you do a fight with Dustin Poirier? Possibly, because that's literally the only opponent out there. Either that or he does the winner of Fiziev versus Justin Gaethje. And that's not something super big on just yet either. Maybe because how close it was. Islam Makhachev got the title back in October against Charles Oliveira of 2022, and now here we are in February 2023, and that's literally 4 months apart. So maybe he does deserve some time away. Maybe he does deserve take a step back. Maybe he could come back in like September or October of this year. Gives him time to let his body heal, let his body rest up, get himself to prepare, get himself to train, and then maybe at that time and at that point we could get ourselves a clear number one contender at the lightweight contendership right now. Or who knows, maybe with the winner of Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, he might want to challenge himself and move up to welterweight. He defended his belt already with no clear number one contender at lightweight. He can see himself going up to welterweight if he feels like he's ready. I personally feel like he doesn't. He's not there yet. I feel like he has a lot more to learn. Like I said, with this Volkanovski fight, I feel like it exposed Islam just a little bit due to the fact that, like, hey, if you're able to take him, you're able to stop some of his takedowns. You're able to use some of your wrestling, and if you do have really good wrestling, then you could really pose Islam a threat. Now, if Volkanovski was a little bit bigger and was a little bit stronger, just like these guys at welterweight are, that would be very dangerous for Islam. Very dangerous. I do not see it going very well for Islam. Not right now. Who knows? Maybe Islam didn't have quite the good game plan, but I do not see it going very well for him at welterweight. At lightweight, I feel like he still could remain champion. I don't really see too many people opposing him. I don't really see too many people possibly taking his belt. That's just my personal opinion. So that's what I feel for Islam. For Volkanovski, he is still the 145-pound champion of the world. I do feel like he still has a lot to offer at the lightweight division, but for the time being, he is going to be fighting now the new interim lightweight champion of the world, Yair Rodriguez. I'll do a video regarding all that, but that's where we're going to see Alex Volkanovski in there. Are we going to see him at lightweight again sometime this year? I'm not sure. Maybe after this title defense, if he does win. Maybe we could see him drop that belt and go up to lightweight full time, because I do feel like he did what he needed to do at featherweight. If he does just so happen to get the victory, let the guys at featherweight do their thing, and maybe he can create himself a full time lightweight contendership and see what he can do up there. See what he can do up there. There's a lot of challenges up there. There's a new, sometimes when you continue to defend that belt multiple times, it tends to get old. It tends to get stale, and you just lose that momentum and you lose that motivation. So I personally would love to see Volkanovski back at lightweight. I really do want to see that rematch with Makhachev. It would be very fun and very interesting fight, and I would love for it to happen possibly this time this year, or maybe even next year. Who knows? But that's just my opinion, guys. One hell of a fight again. UFC 284 definitely lived up to the hype. I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys did too. If you didn't see it, go check out the replay. Guys, it was one hell of a fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.